descendants be? And then he believed in the Lord, and he reckoned to him as righteousness. It says, then he believed. When did Abraham believe? After he saw. Before that, he didn't believe. God spoke to him and said, Abraham, you're going to be blessed. You're going to have descendants that you cannot count. But Abraham didn't believe until he saw. And that's why God showed him repeatedly and repeatedly. Surely, he says, I will bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand in the seashore. Again, Genesis 32:12. But you have said that I will surely make you prosper, and your descendants will be like the sand in the sea, which cannot be counted. Over and over again. Why didn't God just tell him, Abraham, you will be blessed? Because he wouldn't have believed. Remember, the eyes are the windows to the Spirit, the only access to the Spirit. So for God to get access to the Spirit, he had to show him a picture. He said, Abraham, look, see this? And then as soon as he saw, it created faith. See, what you see creates faith, or it creates doubt. I think I said this before, but what if God took Abraham to the edge and put him in a trance, and he showed him a picture like this? Abraham, you will be like a desert, no water, no fresh anything. You're just going to shrivel up and die. What would that have created? Doubt. See, what do you think he would have believed then? See, you always have what you see, and what you see is what you get. You want faith? See it. You want a better relationship with God? See it. You want health? All this kind of stuff? See it. What it comes down to are these last two principles, perspective and focus. Everybody say perspective and focus. Let's first start with perspective, then we'll go to focus, and we'll end this. 2 Kings, a beautiful story about Elisha. And what had happened was the enemies had infiltrated Elisha and his people's camp, and they, not infiltrated, but they had surrounded the camp. And we're going to pick up the story from there. He says, and he sent horses, the enemy sent horses and chariots, and a great army there, and they came at the night, and they surrounded the city. Now, Elisha's attendant, his servant, which is a man of God, had risen early, and they'd gone out, and he saw the army with horses and chariots circling the city. And his servant said to him, alas, Elijah, my master, what are we going to do? They've surrounded us. We're going to die. And he said, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And watch what Elijah prayed. He said, and Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, I pray that what? You open his eyes that he might see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the servant, his spiritual eyes, and he saw. And behold, there was a mountain that was full of horses and chariots and fire all around Elisha. Amazing story. The enemy comes, surrounded the camp, and Elijah's servant freaks out. He's like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? They're going to kill us. And Elisha said, no. Open your spiritual eyes and see things from God's perspective. And the moment that happened, he saw that the spiritual warriors and the spiritual chariots and everyone was around. And the story continues to say that they ended up killing the enemy. See, we've got to see everything from God's perspective, not our own. Every day we go through life, we have the opportunity to see things from our own eyes or things from God's perspective. I'll give you a perfect example. A few years ago when my dad passed, and I told you a story before. I was there in the hospital room, myself and my mother and Anna, and I was there. And when the thing went red line, just like the movies, flat line, and his heart stopped working and whatever. I remember just collapsing there and bawling my eyes out and grabbing the foot of the Salvation Army pastor who was there. I was trying to rip apart his legs. I was so mad and angry and sad I didn't know what to do. And right when I was there, God started to speak to me. And he said, Nick, I want you to see things from my perspective. I said, show me. And just like that, I remember when we were at the house just a couple hours earlier when my father had a stroke. It ended up being a stroke. My father ended up being a stroke, and the firefighters and the ambulance came, and they said, we got to go to the hospital. And I said, you have to go to Sunnybrook Hospital. You have to, because that's where all his medical records are. That's where he gets dialysis. You have to. And they're like, we can't go to Sunnybrook. We have to go to Scarborough Grace. And God reminded me, he says, Nick, there was a reason. I wanted to remind you that my grace was on this whole thing. And then we ended up going there, and I'm going to cut the story short for the sake of time. But I remember my father saying that his greatest wish was that when he passed, and he had all sorts of sickness. He said when his greatest wish was when he passed, it would happen in his sleep and he wouldn't feel any pain. And that's exactly what happened. He was sleeping and he got a stroke in his sleep. He didn't feel any pain and he passed very smoothly, very quickly, not a vegetable. Everything happened very, nice. And the Lord reminded me and he said, Nick, that was my grace. Although I didn't cause this to happen, my grace was upon it. And the moment I saw it from God's perspective, all the anger and the bitterness and the pain disappeared. And all of a sudden there was great joy. And as I was sitting there on the floor of the hospital, God showed me a vision. And I'm not going to tell you the vision because I don't want to freak anybody out. But it brought peace, and I was good with that ever since. See, God doesn't make mistakes, and He can turn anything around. And as long as we go through life looking at things from God's perspective, we'll be okay. A friend of mine owns a Doberman, nice dog. And he also owns a little Maltese to go with it. And it's like a role reversal. Because like all the Maltese sees is this big, gigantic Doberman. And all the Doberman sees is this little, puny little Maltese. So I think the Maltese thinks it's a Doberman, and the Doberman thinks it's a Maltese, and the Maltese basically like barks around and like pushes around this huge Doberman who, if it wanted to, could open and bite it with one bite and swallow the thing whole. But you see, it's all about perspective. We got to learn to see things from God's eye view. Mount Everest, when you're standing at the base of the mountain looking up, it's huge. But if you're in a space shuttle in the middle of space looking down, Mount Everest ain't so big. You see, it's all about perspective, which takes us to the last point, focus. Everybody say focus. See, what you focus on is what you get. Remember the story of Peter walking on water? We all know the story. Jesus had gone up to the mountain to pray. He sent his disciples across the water. And as they're across the water, a great storm came. And so Jesus went walking on the water. And we'll pick up the story from there. Immediately, he made the disciples, here it is. And Peter said to him, Lord, if that's you on the water, command me to come out to the water. And he said, come. And Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water and he came towards Jesus. But Peter doing what? Seeing the wind. Peter, seeing the wind, he became frightened and beginning to sink. He cried out, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his arms, took a hold of him, and he pulled him in. He said, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Why did he doubt? He already knew the answer to the question. He doubted because he took his eyes off of Jesus and he put it onto the circumstance. He shifted his focus and he went from doing something amazing, a miracle, walking on water, to shifting his focus on the situation and began to sink and he almost died. Do you see the power of focus? What would have happened if Peter never took his eyes off of Jesus? He would have walked on water. They probably would have walked all the way to the other side. You see, you might be going through your life right now, and as you go through your life, every day, situations, circumstances, people, all sorts of things that are like waves and like storms are going to come your way. And the only thing that is going to determine if you succeed and get through and press through and win is where you are focusing your eyes. Are you focusing on the situation, or are you focusing them on Jesus? What are you looking at? What gets the focus in your life? Are you seeing the enemy, or are you seeing God? Are you seeing Jesus or what? Remember Jesus sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's about to be tortured and go through all this pain. And as he's there, what does the Bible say? He took his eyes off the cross and the pain and the sorrow and the shame and all that other stuff. And he put it on his Father and the glory that was to come after the cross. And that's what pulled him through. See, it's all about focus and perspective. Peter saw the waves and he began to sink. The Israelites saw the giants, not their land, so they never inherited it. But on the contrary, Abram saw the stars in the sky, and he got his promise. David didn't see a giant, he saw the enemy of God, and he won. The world saw a man hanging on a tree. God saw the salvation of all mankind. Where are you focused, and what is your perspective? Because the scripture says, fix your eyes on Jesus. Fix it on Jesus. Set your eyes on the prize. Set your eyes on the outcome that you want, not what you don't want. There's so many people who are going through life and you're wondering why you keep facing the same hurdles. It's because you're focusing on what you don't want than what you want. Do you realize that? People in life are trying to lose weight, but instead of focusing on a healthy body, they're focusing on their weight and they wonder why they don't lose it. What are you focusing on? We'll end with this story about